Hello everybody, I'm Rene Ramos, Director of the Lynn and Louis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives, and this is Rewind, the show that looks back on Florida's past with historic film and video. It's time for another trip back into the past, so sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Rewind.
On a high plateau, surrounded by mountains, is the Valley of Mexico. Here, 600 years ago, the Aztecs built their beautiful city, Tenochtitlan. Here, Spaniards under Cortés came and conquered, and on the site of the Aztec capital, they built Mexico City. Now a modern city of 7 million people, with a heritage reaching back over 2,500 years. Not far from Mexico City are the ruins of Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, one of the largest and most famous archaeological sites in the world. "15 centuries ago, Teotihuacan was the largest city in the Americas, extending for 50 square miles, surrounding a ceremonial center. Its builders dedicated temples to the forces of nature, earth, fire, wind, and rain. The Pyramid of the Moon, lawgiver of the darkness, looks up to the Pyramid of the Sun, highest of all, the giver of all life. On July 27th, Mexicans celebrate the Festival of St. James. They perform Indian dances in front of a Christian church. In Mexico City, the fiesta takes place on the Plaza of Three Cultures. Here you see Aztec ruins and a Spanish colonial church, in the midst of a modern apartment complex housing 60,000 people. When Spaniards first came to this plaza, they said they heard an Aztec drum that sounded like an instrument of demons. With drums and ankle bells, they expressed pride in their Indian heritage. The uniqueness of Mexico is its blending of Indian and Spanish cultures, resulting in a modern nation. Among Latin American nations, Mexico has led the way in economic progress. New high-rise office buildings and luxurious stores line a grand boulevard called the Paseo de la Reforma. A new subway system and freeways grow out of this progress. And you find excellent hotels and resorts for comfort and relaxation. A full range of accommodations, American or European, blend with the warmth of Mexican hospitality. In Mexico, you find restaurants of every style. In cuisine and in entertainment. Set to the mood of Mexico's own music, coming from the bands called mariachis. The pleasures of shopping in Mexico are unique. Out of an ancient tradition, Mexican craftsmen create treasures in folk art, objects of beauty and fantasy. Folk art flowers in delightful forms, in a traditional Mexican symbol, the tree of life. A vision of paradise that displays the Mexican love of decoration. Out of the same decorative tradition comes the modern architecture of Mexico. Rich in festive colors and imaginative forms. The National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, the world's newest and most exciting major museum. Within its grandeur of scale is displayed the full range of pre-Columbian archaeology and ancient Indian sculpture that ranks with the greatest in world art. Visitors see that faces carved in stone centuries ago are alive today in the villages of Mexico. In some villages, they still dress as they did before the Spaniards came, 450 years ago. They wear costumes that vary according to the region, and they braid their hair into ornate headdresses. When the Spaniards came, they found hundreds of fruits, vegetables, and spices that had been developed by the Indians, foods that are now familiar. Watermelon and pineapple, squash, sweet and white potatoes, vanilla, chocolate, peanuts, avocados, papayas and tomatoes. The Indians developed beans and chilies in dozens of varieties. Chilies can be mild or hot, eaten sun-dried or fresh. And in the Indian markets, the Spaniards found corn. Out of corn, Mexicans make the tortilla, the country's traditional bread. The sound of making tortillas has long been a basic rhythm of Mexican life. With corn as a staple food, it was possible for the ancient people of Mexico to develop a settled community life and to support an elite class. The high priests of the Mayans watched over the growing cycle of corn, the sacred crop. Temples were built. palaces and ceremonial centers to honor the gods, assuring the proper sequence of sun and rain. And so food was plentiful, and the Mayans found time to study the stars and to develop mathematics, to create works of art and architecture worthy of their gods. A stone observatory 4 stories high at Palenque crowned the temple city of a golden age. But the golden age ended long before the Spaniards came. The Mayans abandoned their temple cities. Mayans still live in southern Mexico. They gather for a fiesta in the village of San Juan Chamula. They're celebrating Mardi Gras, the day before Lent. It is also the beginning of the corn planting season. They celebrate with traditional fiesta music. And today, the running of the bulls. Their traditional incense is copal. And on this special day, they perform the ancient ritual of walking on fire, an act of penitence and purification. Every fiesta in Mexico is different. Each season, each occasion is a change in mood. As part of their efforts to convert the Indians to Christianity, the Spaniards introduced village plays and religious pageants. Many are still popular. One that is widely performed is the ritual dance of the Christians fighting the Moors. The Moors try to overcome the Christians. But Christianity always prevails. Just as Spain prevailed in establishing colonial rule over Mexico. On the sites of ancient Indian shrines, Spanish friars supervised the building of churches and convents. The result is European post-Renaissance architecture, dramatically altered by its interpreters in the New World. Everywhere in Mexico, you can find colonial buildings and gardens to explore. And in central Mexico, Tasco is an example of an entire town still maintained in Spanish colonial style. Each year, Tasco celebrates Holy Week by reenacting the crucifixion, death, and resurrection of Christ. Some people take the role of Roman soldiers. Others carry a burden to share in the suffering of the crucified Christ. Spanish friars originated the custom of observing holy occasions with processions through the streets in solemn celebration. Throughout Holy Week, the processions go on, day and night. Along the Gulf Coast of Mexico is the state of Veracruz. Here the sea provides an abundance, and the beat of the huapango, the famous music of the region, makes visiting Veracruz a feast for all the senses. On the other coast of Mexico, by the Pacific, is a place where fiesta time is all the time. Acapulco. To swim in a serpentine pool, by a luxury hotel. To relax on a beach or to float in the air. Here people fly to vacation as the spirit moves them. Always keeping an eye on the folk hero of Acapulco, the cliff diver. To all Mexicans, Sunday is the festive day, and in Mexico City, they visit the parks to celebrate. Sunday is also the day of the charreada. Mexicans meet to celebrate a tradition of excellent horsemanship. The charros are gentlemen riders who compete with riding and roping stunts. And Sunday is the day when Indians traditionally come to the city and dance the dances of their ancestors. Among the ancestors of the Indians were the Toltecs, who by the 10th century dominated Mexico. Tula was their capital. Theirs was a rigid militaristic society, and their sculpture reveals them as fierce conquerors. This temple wall, called the Serpent Wall by archaeologists, shows a skull emerging from the jaws of a rattlesnake. So too, the great stone figures of Tula, 16 feet tall, represent warriors, and in their time they were known and feared throughout Mexico. Mexico offers a feast of discovery in archaeology. More than 10,000 sites of different pre-Columbian cultures are known in Mexico, and the digging goes on constantly. To the visitor, each site offers its own rewards, in history, in art, in mystery. High above the valley of Oaxaca is a wonderful and mysterious site. Monte Alban. This vast ceremonial plaza was built by the Zapotec Indians. Even before the Mayans, the Zapotecs were leaders in astronomy, mathematics, and architecture. They expressed humor and classic dignity in their sculpture, frequently found in tombs, where the human figure is often a sensitive portrait. The past lives on in the popular arts of today, and nourishes a tradition of excellence in the handcrafts of Mexico. Galina Gonzalez makes a figure of the Virgin for a religious fiesta. In the shops, you find many such fanciful figures, and pots in a variety of colors and shapes. Using ancient techniques, Juana Garcia shapes a large pot without using a wheel. She communicates the spirit of a highly refined and imaginative people. These are the hands of Doña Rosa, perhaps Mexico's most celebrated potter. For many years, people have visited the studio of Doña Rosa. She welcomes visitors. To watch her display of skill and quiet concentration is to share in the creativity of a warm and gracious artist. A Sunday feast in a little village is another way to swing with the vitality of Mexico. To share in the warmth of Mexico, family style. When the invitation goes out to everyone, and everyone joins in. As sauce for the turkey, they make mole. Its recipe includes tomato, chocolate, spices, and broth. They break out the pulque, a drink which they tap from the heart of the maguey cactus. they bring out the sheep, roasted in a pit. And the fiesta goes on, the fiesta of a Mexican family.
Soy soldado de levita, de eso de caballería. Eso de caballería, soy soldado de levita. Soy soldado de levita, de eso de caballería. Muy sabroso. Caballería, soy soldado de levita. A una viuda enamoré al pie de una malven rosa. Al pie de una malven rosa y a una viuda enamoré. Al saco a una viuda enamoré y al pie de una malven rosa. Y me dedica la preciosa, no puedo, me duele un pie.
When you travel in Mexico, there are rewards in visiting the little villages. Even in an arid area, far off the beaten path, you can find wonders. Like a magnificent aqueduct, 400 years old, more spectacular than any in Europe. And there are old haciendas to explore. In colonial days, an hacienda was a feudal estate. Now they remain as ruins, or as luxury hotels. Today, many haciendas have been restored and redesigned as resorts and restaurants. With aqueducts and old stone walls, with gardens and spacious patios. Haciendas are a vacation experience you can find only in Mexico. And only in Mexico can you take part in so many fiestas. In mid-September is the biggest fiesta of all. Mexico celebrates her independence from Spain. Mexico City's main square, with the cathedral and the National Palace, has been the seat of power since Aztec times. Here, on Independence Day, the fiesta begins. The President rings Mexico's original Liberty Bell. And the crowd responds with the historic cry, Viva Mexico! Blending different cultures and enriched by its history, Mexico is a country of many feasts. And all its fiestas end in fireworks. Viva Mexico!
That's about it for this edition of Rewind. Just time to remind you that Rewind features historical film and video from the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. To see more from the Wolfson Archives collections, visit our website, wolfsonarchives.org. You can search the archives catalog and watch video online. And be sure to connect to our YouTube channel, where you will find hundreds of carefully curated clips, or link to the Wolfson Archives Facebook page to keep up with our busy calendar of historical happenings. Until next time, I'm Rene Ramos. Thanks for watching.